If you get stuck writing copy, whether it's your emails, your sales pages, your website, then there are 3 main reasons why you might be getting stuck. I asked you all in the classroom newsletter, where are you getting stuck? Is it knowing what to say? Is it actually getting the words out? Or is it structuring your copy so it flows? And the answers were pretty spread out between all of these options. So let's dive into each of them and talk about how to get unstuck when you are writing copy. Okay, so the first one is knowing what to say. So this comes down to messaging and positioning yourself in the market and what are you actually saying to your people. So not so much what are the words that you're using, but what's the message behind those words, right? I talk a lot about how AI sounds good but doesn't have any substance behind it. It really doesn't have a core storytelling message behind the words. And so that's what you really want, is to think about what is the story that you're telling behind the words that you're saying. So in terms of knowing what to say, there's a few things that you can do. One is look at what have you been talking about recently and what pieces are people really resonating with? Are there pieces that are getting conversations started that people are really resonating with, that are leading to sales conversations? And are there pieces that people are pretty much zoning out? So for me, I've been talking about messaging a lot because messaging is super important when it comes to copywriting. But there are some gaps that I'm noticing of what people are not talking about. And that's what I'm going to be leaning into more. So when you're thinking about knowing what to say, some things to consider are: what are the conversations that you are having with your clients, with potential clients? Where are they struggling? Where do they need help? Those are really great starting points to look at what have you already been saying, what's resonating, what's landing, what's not. Collect that data and then you can make a good decision about what should I lean into more and what's not really working, so let me take this into a different direction. The most important thing when you are thinking about knowing what to say is really knowing your ideal client, and then also thinking about how are you positioning yourself in the market? What is different from what you do versus one of your competitors? What makes you you? What is special or unique or different than working with somebody else who does the same thing as you? So those are kind of the things that you want to think about when you are knowing what to say. If you are feeling really stuck, honestly, listening to your ideal clients is probably one of the most important aspects of copywriting. I have a whole framework inside Copy Classroom to help you organize your messaging and what is the core story that you are telling your ideal clients, and then you can branch out from there. So if messaging is something that you are struggling with, get on the wait list. The second piece is actually getting the words out. This one is hard. It's something that everybody struggles with, even people who write a lot. The most important thing that you want to remember when it comes to actually getting the words out is to not judge yourself, not worry about whether this sounds good or whether this is gonna resonate with your ideal client. Like if you can come into a writing session, say you're gonna write this email, what are you actually trying to get across? What's the message in this email that you're trying to get across? And then just sit there and write it out. And I would set a timer for 10, 15 minutes and just write everything and don't erase anything. Because where people get stuck with getting the words out, it's because of these perfectionistic tendencies where you want everything to be great the first time around. But the truth is, writing is a thinking process. And so what makes it great is being able to edit and come back. And so if you are getting stuck, you kind of know what you want to say, but you're getting stuck on actually writing it, give yourself permission to write something that sucks. Literally be like, this email is going to suck, but I'm going to write it anyways, and just go with it. Let it suck. And then after those 10 minutes are up or after those 15 minutes are up, let it sit and then come back to it. This is where AI has really messed us up because, you can do something really quickly with AI. And so when you have to actually sit down and write something, it feels like you're going too slow because you can never produce as fast as an LLM is going to produce for you. And so it creates this unnecessary pressure of, I should be writing this faster. I should be writing this in a specific way. And so give yourself permission to let it be bad and then come back to it. Because a lot of the times when you are tapping into your creative brain, What actually helps is stepping away from what you're doing and engaging your brain in a different way. So that's why you have good ideas when you're in the shower or when you're working on something. A lot of the times, if I'm like doing a puzzle or a craft, I will get good ideas about something I was working on earlier. And it's funny because I'm rewatching Mad Men right now, and there's this scene where Don Draper's like, Peggy, think about it deeply, and then forget about it, and then the idea will like pop in your face. And that's really what creative work looks like. And so putting all of this pressure on the idea of making it perfect right away, that's going to keep you stuck from actually writing, and it's going to keep you in your head versus actually putting something down. Because what happens when you start writing is you're thinking about something, you're thinking about it deeply, and then you can walk away and come back. This is what I do for clients inside the copy studio is I will write and I will brainstorm and I'll be like, this is trash, I would never hand this into a client. But I go do something else and then I come back to it. And I do this 2 or 3 times at least. And by the end, you have this really great product because your brain marinates on stuff when you're not actively looking at it. And so if you're really getting stuck on getting the words out, just give yourself permission to like write for 15 minutes, go do something else, then come back and say, hey, I'm going to spend 15 more minutes on this. And that might be enough for your weekly newsletter. And that was only 30 minutes. You just split it up into two brainstorming sessions and didn't force yourself to try to make it perfect. And that's going to give you something that is a lot more authentic and meaningful to your people too, because there's going to be depth to the thinking, which is AI really messes up because there are words, but there's not a lot of depth behind the words. And so giving yourself that space and permission to create something that's not perfect and then go back and edit and revise it. Which leads me into the last piece people get stuck on, which is structuring the copy so it flows. So you have your brainstorm, and then how do you actually structure it? This is the technical piece of copywriting. In terms of structuring the copy so that it flows, I think one of the most difficult pieces is this challenge around AI, because AI has given people the same structures, especially on a sentence level, and has made them so overpopular that everybody is recognizing them now, and writers are like, I don't want to use these anymore because they sound like they're AI, but AI just took things from human writers, so really you're just sounding like other people. It can be really tricky, and I don't want to get into like the sentence level of things, but basically your copy has 2 jobs. The first job is to get people's attention, to keep their attention. If it's an email, it's going to be your subject line and your opening sentences. If it's your website, it's going to be your headline. And so how can you step out of the box on those things so that you can keep people's attention? And this is where, like, if you're skimming down a page, you want people to be able to get the main points on a sales page without having to read all of the text, but still make it interesting enough that they want to keep scrolling. A lot of the times I see people giving a lot of backstory to the story that they want to tell. It's like, just drop them into the middle of the story, make them feel like, oh, hey, I'm here and we're in now. You don't need to be like, last Wednesday, I went to the bank and this is what I saw. Like, no, just tell them, what did you see? In terms of structuring the copy, you want to keep people's attention, you want to have a hook, and you want to make sure that that hook leads to the call to action. I think another thing that I really see is people lose the thread of what their email was about. Say you're hooking them with an idea about burgers and hot dogs. It's random, right? And then you write this whole email and you connect it back to business, and then you have a call to action. But the thread of burgers and hot dogs, if that's what you're starting with, it should go through the entire email. It should feel like from the beginning of the email to the end of the email, there's a little bow on it, right? You finished the whole thought and you're asking people to do something because they now have that whole thought. So that is probably one of the things that I see people struggling with in terms of structure. So it's not having a hook, not having a through line or a thread that goes from the beginning to the end of what they're working on. And then the other piece too is, like, when you're structuring, you do want to evoke curiosity, right? Like, that's the point of having a hook. And so structuring the email in a way that it's going to keep evoking curiosity and getting people to keep reading. And so that might mean the order that you write things in your initial brainstorm might not be the order that you put your paragraphs when you actually send it. A lot of the time, something that you wrote later actually should come first, and then you give the explanation after, or you go deeper after. These are kind of the things that I see in terms of structuring when I'm editing people's copy reviews inside Copy Classroom. So if that's something that you need help with, join the waitlist at stacybroadcopy.com/classroom. It is also linked in the show notes. So yeah, in terms of getting stuck, these are the major things that people get stuck on. One is messaging. I have a lot of podcast episodes on messaging. So if you are like, wait, I need more, go back and just scroll through my old episodes and actually getting the words out. Give yourself permission to not be perfect. Just write something down. Accept the fact that your first draft is going to suck. My first drafts almost always suck. When I send a email that was written as a first draft, it never does as well than when I send an email that took me 2 drafts or 3 drafts. And then finally, structuring the copy so it flows. That is all about evoking curiosity, making sure you hook people, and then making sure that everything is connected with each other. And you can do this if you're creating a whole sequence, you can connect the sequence emails to each other as well. And then leading people to make a decision and making sure you have that call to action. So those are the 3 main things that people get stuck on. If you need more support, check out Copy Classroom. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Cozypreneur. If you found this episode helpful, make sure to follow, rate, review, share with a business bestie, and thanks again for listening. Until next time.